Hi there, I'm awildtype. Gaming draws a lot of people. Obviously, I'm no exception. Since the 90s, I've been captivated by this form of media, and I wanted to make a video explaining, in my opinion, what makes gaming great. For me, it's all about the story that's being told. The visuals of the game, the music, the sound design, the game mechanics, and the way the player interacts with the game. All these elements ideally form together to place the player inside the story, and to give them the perspective they need to understand it. These stories can either be focused on specific characters, Geralt of Rivia is a good example, or they can be focused around a character that is of the player's own creation, as is the case in many multiplayer games. In other cases, these two story types sort of blend together, and a good example of this is Mass Effect. Mass Effect combined both types of stories in a way that allowed the player to inhabit, or to adopt the mindset of Shepard. The choices represented and the level of customization sort of enabled the player to suspend their own disbelief, to place themselves in the mindset of an interstellar special forces commander. BioWare managed to create a game in which, in order to get the most out of it, you had to think like Shepard. You had to put yourself in his, or her, combat boots. They were able to tell you a story by allowing you to live it. Now, kind of on the other end of that spectrum, right, you have the DayZ phenomenon. This game had over 1 million players in the first month that it was registered, and it was actually just a mod using the Arma 2 engine. It was buggy, full of hackers, poorly maintained in a lot of cases, but people loved it. It dropped you into a survival situation where the biggest threat weren't zombies, but other players in the environment itself. The gameplay, at the time was about as hardcore as it comes, and rewarded cautious, opportunistic players. Because resources were limited and there were no game mechanics that ever guaranteed your safety, you were constantly wary of other players. The environment was deadly too. Your character could meet their demise from a broken leg or food poisoning as easily as they could from a sniper. And because you lost all your equipment after death, because literally everything you worked for in the game was at risk, you stayed on your toes. The game caused you to be cautious, to constantly be alert. It really pulled you into the game and immersed you into this hostile environment. But the result of that is that the experiences and the stories that you have from those games stay with you because you were immersed. Instead of watching some stupid pre-rendered cutscene with quick-time events and a nice, safe outcome, you lived a volatile and chaotic situation. And the times you did survive, the times that you did, make it out, you were aware that the only factor that maybe allowed you to escape could have been chance, could have been luck. As a counterexample, take a game like No Man's Sky. Extremely repetitive gameplay, a lack of any true interaction or anything you do really making an impact on the world, made this game feel more like going through a zoo than an interstellar epic of exploration. No player interaction meant no piracy or co-op, and dying was a light slap on the wrist, so nothing was really at stake. Because there was no risk, because there was nothing at stake, there wasn't really a reason to play, and the numbers speak for themselves. The game dropped off drastically shortly after release. Great games, like great stories, have highs and lows, but No Man's Sky was just kind of a flat experience. Sadly, this pattern is nothing new, as developers are focusing more on reaping players' wallets for minuscule content, for DLC, for, stupid weapon skins and stuff. What they fail to realize is that gaming isn't about having every weapon skin or unlockable character. It doesn't matter if you don't have to work for it, right? Or if you don't risk anything. They also rely too heavily on items and leveling up as reward systems, on keeping players kind of addicted to this grind. And a lot of times they push these impressive visuals and tech, like No Man's Sky did, instead of worrying about keeping players engaged with content and gameplay that is interesting, that keeps them coming back to a story, even if that story is one that the player is creating themselves. The end result of a great game can be judged by the narrative it produces, whether it be a linear story with memorable characters, an open world, or multiplayer adventure that makes the player the star of the show. Unfortunately, story in gaming seems to be an afterthought more often than not. Titanfall 1, the first one, is a good example of that, and the market was extremely disappointed when that game came out as a result. It felt empty. It felt, less than a full game. Thankfully, Respawn learned from their mistakes, and the game they just released, Titanfall 2, is a great example of how a gaming story should be, of how a story can be immersive and engaging and complete and leave you with this really awesome set of memories. Anyway, that's it for the video. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. What are some of your favorite stories in gaming? Go go ahead and leave your answers down in the comments below for me. Also, go ahead and like and subscribe if you would. It really helps me out. As always, have a good one, and we'll see you next time.